Can you please say your name, age, and where you're from?
Absolutely. I'm Brian Heilig. I'm 48 and live in Orlando, Florida.
Brian, where would be the best place to start with your story?
I think at the beginning, really, meaning we didn't want kids for some time because we were kind of scared and we don't have enough money and we don't have a stable environment or we don't have stable jobs or whatever it is, like all these excuses that went into like a long time into our late 30s. And then we said, shoot, I think we should try. And then it wasn't happening. So that's when the panic kind of started setting in. And finally, after several years, we decided to get checked out. And it was an issue that my wife, Diana, was having with her egg production and the quality of the eggs. And so we then started seeking different alternatives and so forth, and discovered IVF in vitro. And so we did that in the States. And we were in South Florida at that time. And everything was going the way it was supposed to go, right? We extracted egg. You know, she did all these shots in her stomach. It was insane. Women, I tip my hats to you because men could never do it. And after all these months of rounds of shots in her stomach every day, and then they were able to extract eggs. And then I did my thing, and we're trying to create the embryos. And we had the appointment set for the day of implantation. And the doctor called that morning and said, don't come because none of the embryos made it. And we were devastated. Yeah, it was like, what? She went through a lot. And so then I was like, well, all these alternatives, you could do this, you could do that. And we just weren't hearing it at that moment because it was just, just devastated. So, a little while longer, not even a year, our friend that worked with me at my job said, hey, I'm fostering to adopt. I don't know if that would be a consideration for you guys, but you might want to check it out. I had no idea that even existed. I knew foster care, I knew adoption, but I didn't know that, at least in South Florida, that could be even an option. So we did go through the classes, which was, again, just heart-wrenching, all the things that the kids are going through and the parents and all these cases they're real cases that we had to go through and dissect, and it was just unbelievable. We did graduate, we became foster parents, and then a couple days later, the agency called and said, listen, we have a 7-day, 8-day-old baby, Eva, do you want her? We were like, well, yeah, let's do it. And so we got Eva at 8 days old. And we found out early on kind of what happened with the parents, and we realized that it was not a typical situation, and the likelihood of them getting Eva back was super high. So it was supposed to be originally 2 months that they had to go through and, do the exercises that they needed to do to become fit to raise a kid. And the judge was super stubborn. So at 2 months, he gave them 3 more months. So we knew we weren't going to keep Eva. We had her for 5 months, which she started growing on us like you can't imagine. And then we had to give her back at 5 months old. So at that point, we were just like devastated. Forget it. We're not going to have kids. It's just not going to happen.
I can't imagine how heartbreaking that would be.
It was, I'll never forget. I saw when Diana wouldn't come with me when I dropped off Eva. We went to a parking lot, and I put Eva in the backseat of their car, and she looked at me, and I was like, done, game over. But yeah, that was a tough one. And then about a year after that, I had an opportunity for a job in Mexico, in Cancun. And I never really gave it serious thought, but I did tell Diana about it, and she did her research like she does. And lo and behold, one of our friends lives there, and he happens to be the acupuncturist for an IVF doctor who has rave reviews and has a high success rate. So she said, look, I'll go to Mexico if we can try again. And I was like, that's on you, babe. I'm game if you're game. And this time it worked. She got pregnant. We were ecstatic. It was a high-risk pregnancy just because of our age. At that point, we were 42. or 41. And, so she was kind of pretty much on bed rest and what have you. And things were going good until week 25. And Diana's blood pressure shot up and she was admitted into the hospital due to severe preeclampsia. And they said that they had to deliver the baby to save her life. And I'm like, I don't understand. He's 25, like he's halfway. Like this, how does this even happen? Nobody does a birth plan to think about what if I have a preemie or a micro-preemie. It's just full-term birth. So you just don't know what's going on. And they ended up delivering Grayson at 26 weeks, right at 26 weeks. And he was 1.5 pounds, 12 inches long. And in Mexico, the NICU is not as advanced as the IVF, and it was like 30 years behind. The equipment, they only had him in a bed with saran wrap and a heat lamp. There's no incubators like we know it in the States. So it was, but we didn't know that because we've never had a preemie before, much less a micro-preemie. And so we went kind of, public with what we were dealing with, and the community rallied around us, and we had NICU nurses from all over the world saying, look, he's not in the proper position. If you could even move him to the States or wherever, that would be better. He would have better care, better chance to survive. And so we ended up doing that. After 21 days in Mexico, we transported him to Miami, where we did another 84 days. So he was in the NICU for 105 days. So crazy.
Wow. How did you cope through that time and through everything that was going on?
Not well. It was like just autopilot because, I'll never forget. I'm in the hospital and I have, my baby in the NICU and Diana's in the ICU, and, I'm like, what do I do? So, it was tough. And the other issue that we had was there's, we know some Spanish, very little, but medical Spanish is a whole nother level, and we couldn't communicate. So we had even translators that would come, and they've never heard of these words in English, so they couldn't translate the medical terms. So we really never knew what was going on top of everything else. So how do you cope? It's like it's like 1 minute at a time, and I try to tell NICU parents because now it's easier to look back, but when you're in it, you got to hang on. You just got to hang on. Like, don't get off the ride. It's a roller coaster, but you can't get off, whatever that looks like. Diana needs something, or the doctor needs something, your baby, whatever. You just got to stay on the ride.
That's good advice.
Yeah, it's tough. I talk to a lot of NICU parents, and we may have different stories, but we're like bound by the NICU. There's always that. It changes you. It just changes you as a human being. You get real clear on what's important in your life, like real clear.
In terms of the facilities that they had at the hospital in Mexico, did you know at the time that it was way behind where it should be, or did it take you a little while to realize, like after all of this had happened, to realize just how far behind they were?
Yeah, no, I had no idea. In fact, it's funny because, I say funny. I have to do humor to get through things sometimes. It's not funny, obviously, but I showed the doctors in Miami, where we transported him to, the equipment. I showed them on my phone, like, check this out, and they were like, wow, I learned about that in school, like the old techniques that they used to use, and
Wow.
it's completely just normal, and we're so thankful because his doctor in Mexico is phenomenal, and they said that doctor saved his life, but now he'll thrive. So he was just basically hanging on. And so it wasn't until the nurses, they were very, very diplomatic about it, but they would reach out to us and just say, listen, I hope I'm not overstepping, but let me show you some pictures of how he should be placed. His legs were like wide open, when he should still be in the womb, So it was like, he needs to be in that cradle kind of position, and we were just like, we thought it was funny. Oh, look at him flailing his legs around, But it wasn't funny. It's not the way that it should be. So we had no idea. Thank goodness for those nurses that had the, confidence to reach out and help us. And that was a big determination of moving him.
In terms of support that you had, both in Mexico and in the US, what kind of extra support would have been beneficial aside from updated facilities?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing for us there, unfortunately, I mean, I don't know how many people are having babies in Mexico that don't live there, but it was a language. It was a language. If we had, we would try Google Translate, but that didn't even work. It was just, the doctor was frustrated. We were frustrated. And so, it wasn't until we got to Miami that we knew what a Brady was, and that's the reason that all his, bells and whistles were going off, but we couldn't know there. So to be able to have, communication would be amazing. I think that the other support that we got was absolutely incredible. This is from our friends, our family, strangers that heard the story, that donated not only time, money. Sorry, whew, I think back to it, and it's rough. Time, money, prayers. It was inspiring. Like, it was an act of God for sure that all these people came together for us.
And in terms of your son now, how is he, and how old is he?
Yeah, so little Grayson, he is 6 years old. He'll be 7 in July. After the 105 days in the NICU, we brought him home, and, he had monitors and all that kind of stuff. But at about 2, my wife, now Grayson has been in therapy since he wasn't born. I mean, literally from day one, he had therapy. And so my wife was like, something's not right. Something's off at about 2 years old. And I'm like, no, he's just underdeveloped. It's going to take, they all said it's going to take a while for him to catch up. But he was really not catching up in certain areas. And so we finally, at 3 years old, officially had him, checked out, and he was diagnosed with autism, sensory processing disorder, OCD, like ADHD, like everything. The kid's just runs on high all the time. He's like fight or flight his whole world and his whole life. So he's been dealing with that since, since he was born. We found out that kids that are born in that type of environment, even at 26 weeks, have about a 30% increased chance of developing autism or somewhere on the spectrum. Yeah, so he's an amazing little guy, like so smart, so wicked smart. He remembers everything. It's just, there was a house that was painted on the block, like at the end of the block. One day it was orange, the next day it was white. And it's almost like when we left in the morning for school, it was orange, and when we came home, it was white. And he goes, that house was supposed to be orange. We're like, did you memorize all the colors of all the houses? Like, it's so crazy. How would you know that?
Yeah, that's impressive.
So he's doing well in the situation that he's in, we're super grateful.
And for yourself, because that's a traumatic thing to go through, how are you holding up?
There's good days and bad days. What's crazy about our story, which continues, is we then had naturally a second son. So crazy. And that's Nathan. So he's our little, he's 4, he's going to be 5 in October, and he's our comic relief. He's the silly one. He's the second child, that likes to try to get himself in trouble, but also loves you like crazy. So to see them interact is really incredible. But there's days where I get home from work and Dinah's like, I'm out. Give me the keys. I'm leaving. Good luck. And so we play off each other extremely well, with knowing when the other one needs a break, and, just taking it one day at a time. And every day is, you just never know what you're going to get. you never know. It could be a great day, and then 2 seconds later, it's like freak out central, So when that happens and we're triggered too, then we get crazy. And so the other, Di and I'll come, or I'll, save her, she'll save me, and just say, okay, leave, take a break. So that's, fortunately we have that relationship, and it helps a lot.
In terms of your memoir, can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we chose to go live because everybody, kind of the word got out. So I was texting people, I was messaging people, I was, WhatsApping people, but it got to be so overwhelming, in a good way, but we wanted to keep everyone updated on what was happening. So we did several lives on Facebook and people said that they were like tuning in every day, like the Truman Show, like what's happening today with the Heilegs. And so a lot of this is on our news feed, but it was in Miami when we went live. One of our friends said, hey, you should write a book about this because it's absolutely insane, like all the things that we went through. And in the moment you're like, yeah, haha, that's funny, I've never written a book, but people always say, I should write a book or someday. And so after we knew he was okay and I went back to work, it stuck with us. And I'll never forget, it was about 3 years now after he was born, and the pastor at church, he said, hey, have you ever asked God what he wants you to do with your life? And I was like, oh, that's a good one. No, I always just talk about what I want to do, and he goes, let's try it. So close your eyes and just ask what you should be doing. And it was instant. It was like lightning speed. I heard, write the book, speak about it, and transform lives. And so right then I wrote my first word, turned into the first sentence, first paragraph, first page, and so on and so forth. And it ultimately took me 3 years, just about 3 years, to write and edit and get a cover design and all of it. So super, super grateful. Here it is, Super G. And that was just released a couple months ago. And all the net proceeds are going to go toward... All the net proceeds are going to be going toward putting a proper incubator into Mexican hospitals, because the percentage of babies that are born raised in gestation is way low compared to the States, like significantly low, just because they don't have the right equipment. So if we could just help one baby live, that would be amazing. We envision going back with proper incubator, and we want to call it the G unit, for Grayson, Super G, the G unit. And to be able to give his doctor proper incubator would be amazing.
And where can people find your book?
So the easiest is just to go to my website, which is brianheilig.com, BrianHeilig.com. And then you have the option, if it's in the States, we can actually have Grayson and I sign it, if that's the option you choose, and we can ship it in the States, though, in the US. But Amazon ships, all over the world, so it's also on Amazon.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And Brian, is there anything else or any parts of your story that you haven't covered yet that you'd like to cover?
I think it's more of, well, thank you for having me. This has been absolutely incredible. I think that, just getting the awareness out to people that might be going through something like this, that you're not alone. I always try to tell people to be in communication and receive help, like take the help, because, we try to want to be all macho, especially guys and dads. We're supposed to handle it all, but you cannot do it alone. So I just urge people to be in communication. I don't care if it's with me, reach out to me, but reach out to your support network. Let them know what you're going through and accept the help. And also, please make sure that you are an advocate for your child. I don't care what happens. If you don't think something is right, speak up. It's your baby. The doctors and nurses are amazing, but they're not the parent. So you want to definitely speak up and be heard, no matter what that takes, at all costs.